wanted to tell you about this exclusive club that you can join today. It's called Up Yours Club. You can go to upyoursclub.com right now. Any of you, it's free to join. And all you have to do is give us an email address, but also you have the opportunity to give us a one-time or ongoing non-tax deductible donation. Now, you have to talk to your tax professional to determine if it is non-tax deductible or not. I'm not a tax professional, and I'm not offering tax advice.
You definitely need to buy Danny a cup of coffee, okay?
That's so true.
You really do. I mean, he needs your support, and all that kind of stuff. So do that, definitely. And Up Yours Club.
Yes. Listen, upyoursclub.com.
Yeah.
So this next story is interesting because it applies to every human being that exists on the face of the planet, but specifically to the big man because he is. Yeah. Can I say the words? He is a realtor. You
absolutely can say the words. They're behind me and around me and everywhere else.
you paid for it. So the big man is the big man in real estate, actually.
That was
Austin.
The origin of the big man branding, was the big man in real estate. And yes, so I own parts of several real estate companies now. So this is obviously dear to my heart. And I got to tell you, it is both wonderful. This story is both wonderful and infuriating all at the same time. Because I, being the big man in real estate, have actually been talking about this for years, pre-Dos Equis Pandy. Right? And then now it's just, as many things that we've talked about on this podcast, accelerated the problem. Right? It's accelerated the problem. And that problem we're talking about is, according to the article and several of them Danny sent me here, it says the U.S. market needs to add 4 million single-family homes just to catch up to current demand. Right?
Wild. That
is insane.
So both of us are in the Austin market. I'm actually working on a real estate license right now. And what's interesting is our market in Austin is wild.
Oh,
it is
gratuitous.
It's offensive.
Awful.
I'm offended.
It's great to make money, but it is offensive. We have people paying at any given weekend, no matter the price range. I don't care. You can't find a house for $200,000, but whether it's $200,000 or $2 million, any given weekend, a decent house, meaning decent, I can, even if I need a little bit of work, but it's livable, can go from 10 to 30% above market value.
Right.
On any given weekend, and people are paying that above because banks don't give you above market value, folks.
Right.
Banks don't give it to you. Now, let's talk about that. If let's just say I can prove a home is worth $300,000 and it goes for $400,000, a bank isn't going to give you $400,000. They're not going to give you $360,000. They're not going to give you $350,000. They're going to give you whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever your loan you're using, anywhere from 3.5% to 20% down. They're going to give you that portion, and people are paying that extra out of pocket. They're paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to get into homes in the Austin market, and they're having to do that because they're bidding against anywhere from 10. I'm getting 10 to 30 offers in 3 days on anywhere, again, like I said, 10 to 30 to 35% above what I can prove a home is worth, because that's how low the inventory is, right? And then you add on top of that since, and this is where, when we get into economics and stuff like that, people don't always understand how things that happen affect us 10, 20 years down the line.
Right.
The housing crisis in 2009, 2010 led to a bunch of your medium and small builders going bankrupt, getting out of the business entirely. They had to give up on homes that weren't finished because they couldn't afford to finish them. Nobody was buying them. There were failed neighborhoods that didn't get completed and whatever. And on the other side of that, who benefited? The high medium to big builders. The small and medium builders didn't come back. A lot of them. And then your medium high to big builders, your D.R. Hortons and stuff like that, have maintained their building at the edge. Right? They have not, in the last decade, been willing to risk all in. I'm going to build these homes as fast as I can and sell them as fast. They've maintained that. Nope, we're selling them here. Nope, we're fine. All right, we're going to steady increase. And then you have Dos Equis Pandy walk in. Nobody wants to sell their home, and then
not only does nobody want to sell their home, the supply chain shortages on lumber, on all the things that it takes to build a house,
shingles, everything, every product. And this is again one of the big things. I've had this conversation with real estate professionals and real estate companies, people that I know, owners and everything, from the top down for the last 12 months. Well, previous to that, but on this subject, because we knew it was going to happen. We knew the production of last year, when everything hit, the world stopped. Not just the U.S. We are very focused. We go, okay, well, wait a minute. There was still lumber on the shelves at Home Depot. There was still, you know what I mean? Everything we needed to build a house, even in August, right? In September or whatever. They didn't realize that, guess what? That lumber doesn't stay at Home Depot. That's not where it's created, right?
No.
It's created cutting down trees in South
Brazil
America,
somewhere,
right?
Exactly.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And when that stopped too for months, and then all of a sudden you go through the. People don't understand that, especially in America, and we're lucky to live in a place where it seems like the rest of the world supplies us products to buy. And what that leads to is mountains. We have warehouses full of things like lumber and food and water and all these things, so that when you go to H-E-B, when you go to Home Depot, it's sitting there waiting on you.
Yeah.
The problem is it took us months, because there are so many warehouses. It took us months to go through that stuff. Warehouses kept sending it to the stores.
Yeah.
And that production lag then ended up to a warehouse lack of inventory that now has hit our shelves lack of inventory.
Yeah, and I think there's another angle to this, that is, people who lived in a city before are now rethinking, hey, I don't maybe want to live in such close proximity to people.
Absolutely.
There, in some regions, like my former hometown, people, don't want to be downtown for various reasons now, because there's unrest or civil whatever. And that has also pushed people into the suburbs. And then I know people that are like, why am I living in this particular state where I was married to a job where they said, you're gonna go work from home. And a lot of people have said, I'm not going back to my office.
A lot of businesses have said that.
And
so you have this upper middle class group of people that made money last year because they didn't lose their jobs. They just worked from home. Right? So they made the same amount of money, or they got a raise. And then you take the investors, and investors made a crap ton of money last year. So you take your upper middle class and above, right? Your top 20% of Americans, they made crap tons of money last year. And like you said, realize that I can now make that money from anywhere. And they moved. They they needed to. If I'm working from home, if my wife and I are both working from home, we need more than one office. We need more than one space.
Right. And so, we talked in our last episode about Joe Rogan building a little enclave of comedians. There are one group of people who went, hey, wait a minute. I'm touring nationally. I'm doing a podcast. I don't have to be in Los Angeles.
Nope.
Right? And a lot of people in Los Angeles, New York, Chicago, they said, hey, Austin's a great place to move. So they're all making the move. And like you said, they're coming in 30, 35% above ticket, which is with the appraisal value. They're coming in 35% above ticket because they're offloading a $2, $3, $4 million house and buying a $600,000 or $700,000 or $800,000 house that is bigger than what they're selling, and going, I had so much equity in that house because I bought it 5 years ago. And people in downtown Los Angeles don't, or wherever the condos are in Los Angeles or New York, are going, we don't want to, if you're the finance industry in New York, you kind of have to stick around. Yeah. So you're going to move to Connecticut, but then your condo's going up for sale or whatever in New York. There's so much activity of people moving out. This is probably one of the first times where I believe in, probably 50 years, where the flow of people went, instead of going from the suburbs to the city, which is like my generation of people were like, the elder millennials were like, why would I live in the suburbs? I want to go live in the city. That's where all the action is. Until you're in the city and you're in a bodega downtown and somebody sneezes on you, and then you can't backhand them because you're downtown. Then you go, I want to go live in the suburbs where I have a Walgreens and everyone maintains their distance.
Right.
And that is what I think has driven a lot of this. And I think it's like, here's the other thing. If you're someone who is saying, I can go build a bus and I can go live in a school bus for a year and drive around the country, sell your house and do it.
Absolutely.
Now is
Well,
the time.
again, look, so here again, I look at things on not only a now level but the future level, and the problem that this has created, and we had this problem here in Austin even before that, because houses have been going up in value, low inventory for a while. Even before this has again made it 1,000 times worse. But what it does is it affects your first time home buyer. There is no such thing in the Central Texas market, and a lot of your big markets, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, Florida, several cities in Florida and California,
Right, yeah.
places that people are moving, that your first-time home buyer has now been out of the market for a while. There's no such thing as a first-time home. When I bought my very, very first home that I bought myself, I took one over from a friend, but the one that my wife and I bought a month before we were married, right, in 2002, I bought for $120,000 for zero down, right, and whatever. Still own that house, by the way.
Right.
It's not worth $120,000. It's worth $450,000.
There you go. God bless.
But my point is that doesn't exist anymore. Your first-time home buyer home in the Central Texas market, even before this, was $250,000, $300,000, right?
So,
to
continue.
get in with your first-time home buyer, 3.5%, 5% down, right? You had to do the math. You had to have $20,000 in the bank. Right? What 25-year-old has $20,000 in the bank when your average American has $1,000 in the bank?
Well, a lot of 25-year-olds have $25,000 in student loan debt.
Well, and then and here's why I say the future, right? Because if I don't buy that first-time home, right, when
you
I'm
don't
in my
get into that
mid-20s, you don't get into that
second
second home when you're in your 30s, and you don't build that wealth. You realize that Generation X, my generation, right?
Yeah.
That's where they gained their wealth. They bought homes when they were young.
25, yeah.
And then they got that equity when they were in their 30s. And now that they're hitting their 40s, they got that second equity from that second investment. Now, again, I'm not saying that should be your biggest investment, but that's what it was for the baby boomers, the last end of the baby boomers, and the Generation Xers. That's how they gained their wealth. Millennials and Gen Z, that's not an option.
So here's what I, of course, as someone who is I'm a millennial, I've never owned a home. And I will put it this way. I am in large contrast to the big man, someone who says home buying is not the landmark, not landmark, what's the word I'm looking for, but whatever it is not that mile marker in life that it used to be. It's not an asset.
We've had that conversation. Right. It's not an asset.
So
people call it an asset, but it is a way to build wealth.
It is, and I don't deny that. But I do think that for a lot of people my age that are deeply in student loan debt, I listen. I don't think that $20,000 or $30,000 that you scrimp and save to put a down payment down on a house. I do believe, this is my personal opinion. So if you take my advice and it doesn't, if you take this non-advice as advice, do so at your own risk. This is simply my personal belief. This is a program called Idiots versus Idiots. If you take us seriously, up yours. You deserve whatever you get.
Club.com.
I think that $20,000 or $30,000 could be better implemented. Putting it towards some sort of income producing side hustle, whether that's a website doing affiliate marketing or whatever, whether that's a drop shipping store, whatever. Whether that's making a small investment into cryptocurrencies. Again, if you take this as advice, you're an idiot. But the reason I say that is you're going to bet on making a asymmetrical investment.
Sure.
And that's where I think a lot of millennials, because we need to make riskier and riskier bets in order to compensate for the poor advice that my generation received, advice I never took. But I also had parents that were helped out with getting me through college without any student loan debt. But I also picked the exact cheapest colleges to go to.
Well, but that is the situation you had. right?
Yeah.
That's a situation you had, and good for you, but
Right.
that's not ever, like you said, there
That's
are
not
a lot
everybody.
of millennials out there with 20, 30, 50. Hey,
$1,000
I know a
is-
millennial that's got $200,000 in student debt. Now she's a lawyer, but again, guess what? She doesn't own a house either, right? Now,
Yeah,
and here's my point is I'm not, again, I am an advocate of real estate being part of your
Of course
portfolio. But and here's, so what happens when you don't buy that house, and you should be doing those side hustles and stuff as well, that building that house and paying yourself each month that mortgage, you're doing both. But millennials and Generation Z, as it sits right now, may not get to benefit for that for an extra decade. And that extra decade is a lot of money, a lot of wealth that goes untapped.
So what I'm saying to my fellow millennials, and perhaps maybe this is a time for you to keep your opinion to yourself, you old, vicious, I'm kidding. I'm just saying that I see what you're saying, and I agree with you. And I think that it is more a blessing that occurs if your perspective is the red-pilled one, which goes that this opens me up to so many more opportunities. If I lived in Chicago, or if I lived in New York, or if I lived in Los Angeles, or if I lived in Austin and somebody in Florida called me up and said, hey, there's an opportunity for you to make $1 million a year here, but I'm tied to a house and I'm stuck. Well, I guess you're not really stuck in Austin because you can sell your house for a huge profit. But what I'm saying is, if you're, the house, owning a home somewhat ties you down to a place. And insofar as you can be mobile, I have friends who, up until Dos Equis Pandy, did not live in a place. Okay?
No,
they just hopped from country to country on 90-day visas, and they lived in Vietnam, and they were in some other. They were in.
That's just not most people. That's 1% of 1%. The fact is,
that is true.
Most
that
people
is true.
need to have a job that is geographically relevant. They have to have a place to live. They have to have a whatever. And again, and I don't. Again, these are all situational. There are definitely situations where renting is the way to go, and there are definitely situations where buying is the way to go. But here's where I disagree with you in that not owning your home, statistically speaking, 50 years, the last 50 years. If you didn't own your home versus the same age group that did own their home, where are these two people at? And it's not the ones that didn't. So you take the next 50 years, and again, statistics being statistics. Now, again, I'm not disagreeing with you, and I don't want people listening to this going, hey,
but here's the point,
side hustles are, everyone should have a side hustle, whether you buy a home or not. Everybody should be investing, whether you own a home or not. Everybody should be doing all the things Danny's talking about, and there's definitely, and I have this conversation with every, not only client of mine, every realtor, every business owner I talk to, is there's a time and place for everything. You have to look at your scenario and go, is it the right time for me to buy?
And all I'm saying is I want to be an advocate for the don't buy rent movement, which is go invest your money into other things, because a single family home, which I love a single family home. At the core of my being, I am a kid who was raised in the suburbs of St. Paul who loves the suburbs. I might be the only person who's like, why would I live in a city when I can go live in an apartment in the suburbs and drive instead of walk, drive to all these places? But what I want to be an advocate for my ideas. That's the whole point of having a podcast, which is...
Well, it's hard when your ideas suck. No, I'm saying that. Look, again,
up yours.
If it works out for you, here's the deal, and we always can't know how it works out for us. Because let's take that scenario. If you are, let's say, a 30-year-old person that, okay, I've got $25,000 in student loan debt, I don't own a home, but I've got an extra 10 or 15K over here that I was thinking about buying a home, but I'm not sure if that's the right thing. You could absolutely... in this scenario, now what if scenario, this is idiots versus idiots, you're an idiot, right? And you take that $15,000 and you invested that January 1st into Dogecoin, and now that $15,000 is $400,000, and with that amount of money, you could just buy you a home outright or buy whatever you needed, or it turned into $1 million, then that worked for you. The problem is no one has a crystal ball to know whether that works for you or someone else.
Right. So here's what I'm saying. There is no one-size-fits-all answer to any question in life. There is no one-size-fits-all.
Real estate has been pretty consistent, though.
That's true.
Mean, seriously.
I'm an advocate of real estate investing. I'm not saying I'm not. What I'm saying is approaching, if you're in my generation, if you're a millennial, we received poor advice about taking out student loans. And so what I'm saying is perhaps have a cynical, but let's not say cynical. Cynical is not a fair thing to say. I never want to be cynical or negative. Have a skeptical eye, skeptical perspective on buying a home as thinking this is how to build wealth. But there's so many other avenues that were not available to Gen Xers because Gen Xers went and bought books at a bookstore, and now some stranger comes to my house and delivers all of my groceries and all of my stuff. So there's so many other opportunities out there, and I just want to be an advocate of saying, because this is what I'm doing, right?
There is more than one way, and I will say that about almost anything, right?
And let me just say this also. Let me just close with this one statement, and maybe the big man has a response here, but the person who benefits the most from your investment in a single family home is the bank that gives you the loan. That's an asset to the bank, but maybe not to you. I'm not opposed to it.
I agree that it's not an asset. I've already said that. By definition, it does not meet Robert Kiyosaki. Yeah. It does not meet the definition of an asset. It's not
agreed.
On a monthly basis. It does not generate you income.
But over time, it builds wealth for you. I get what you're saying. I'm simply saying that I'm just being an advocate for what I believe, which is college isn't for everyone. It's probably for the inverse amount of people who go to college. So
I agree with you there.
Right. So I think that, I think maybe 10 or 15% of the people who are going to college belong there. I think the other percentage of people who are they're just young people trying to figure out life, and they took on the dumbest way to figure out life, the most expensive way to figure out, and you're not going to figure it out. That's what I guarantee you.
And if you fall into that, I would say anybody at any age, but if you fall in that 20 to 35 age right now and you're listening to this show, go type in Gary V into TikTok, into Instagram, into anything else, and listen to his thing, because he's preaching exactly what Danny's saying, which is you're spending time in college trying to figure out something that's not what the place to do it in, right? And it's costing you money.
And I believe similarly, for a lot of people, they create this unrealistic expectation of what buying their first home is going to be. And it doesn't turn out to be that. And for a lot of reasons, you don't know if the market can go up, can go down. You don't have flexibility. And so I'm just saying, I'm being an advocate for what I believe, which is in college, similarly, buying a home ain't the investment people say it is. Investigate something else that might work for you. I will never be one of those people who lives in a school bus. So I think that's weird.
Right, but you will then in turn, millennials, Generation Z, will rent those places that you live in, however nice or not nice they are, from Generation X and baby boomers. You will rent them from us.
No. Let me explain something.
Somebody's making money regardless.
Let me explain something. Maybe you take your whatever $15,000 or $20,000 or $30,000 that you finally saved up, and you say, "Hey, I can go buy a house that will rent out in a college town, or it's going to, whatever. I'm going to go buy a house in some other state, and I'm going to go put a management company in charge of it because the cost of ownership is lower in Memphis, Tennessee, let's say." Right? So you go buy a house near the Memphis University of Memphis campus. Maybe that's a better investment for you than buying a house where you live in Austin, Texas. I'm just saying, maybe you use that money to buy an investment property. So you're still buying a single-family home. You're still getting the benefits of it, but you rent where you live, and you buy where you can rent out. That's all I'm saying. That's what I was trying to drive at. But, the big man can't help himself from interjecting every 4 seconds. Saying, hey, well, tell you what, how the nigga do?
One of us is a successful businessman, and the other one's jealous. Who's who is up to you. But that's all I'm saying, okay? So, look, and all you have to do if you are considering buying real estate, selling real estate, want to take advantage of it, find your local big man team at gmail.com. You can email that. One of my people, wherever you are all across the country, we're actually in 6 different countries now. We'll absolutely turn around and send you my local people to help you and make sure that you are taken care of. And here's my deal, and I tell every single person I work with in all these cities across the United States, Canada, and all these different places we're at, I tell them the same expectation. We are upfront with people. If I sit down with you, if one of my people sit down with you, and it's not the right time for you to buy or sell, we will tell you it's not the right time for you to buy or sell. I have never, in my decade now of real estate and training other realtors and stuff like that, never had a single person come back and tell me that it wasn't, that either way I told them wasn't the right way for a situation that worked out for them.
Right.
Okay, so it's not about making money. It's about putting people in the right situations, because then you turn around and you build wealth. I've helped people with bad credit turn into renters, renters into homeowners, and homeowners into investors. That's our goal every single time.